Hi there guys, it's Garth here from Draw the Trigger, and with the release of set 11 I thought what the best thing to possibly do at this time would be to provide you with a deck profile for a deck that's not actually playable for another month. Yes, it's Genesis! I'm lovely, aren't I? Sorry, please don't hurt me. Sorry. Long time subscribers to the channel will know that this is not the first Genesis deck profile that I'm going to provide for you. So annotation is on the screen right now to my original Artemis non-break ride deck. So let's go straight into the deck profile. So as you just saw, the starter there is the Witch of Prohibited Books Cinnamon. Typical Pioneer ability. When something rides upon it, you may call it to rearguard. Her other ability is when this unit boosts a grade 3 or greater Genesis that hits the Vanguard, so it doesn't even have to be behind the Vanguard, it can be a rearguard grade 3, you may pay the cost of putting this unit into the Soul, and if you do, you may Soul Charge 2. So essentially a Soul Charging 3. Wonderful for fueling the Soul. For the triggers, we have 8 critical triggers. This one, of course, has the ability of putting it into the Soul from the rearguard, choosing one of your Genesis and giving it plus 3000 power. If you ever need it to fuel the Soul anymore, of course. And, of course, 4 draws and 4 heals. So that's the trigger lineup there. Moving on to the grade 1s, we should start with the Perfect Guard. We run 4 of them. That's Kishinada. We run 4. I mean it's a standard anyway, but you kind of end up soul charging at least 1, or in my case about 4, during the course of the game. So we run as many as we can in the hope that we can draw into one rather than soul charging it, or of course damage checking it. Next we have 3 copies of Mihikari Hime. That's the 8k vanilla. You'll notice that I've got shiny Fighters Collection cards throughout this deck, so get used to shiny things. Next we have 4 copies of Witch of the Catechumen. Her ability is when she's placed on the Vanguard or rearguard circle. If you have a Genesis Vanguard, you may Soul Charge 1. Again, fueling that fueling that Soul, and also a consistent 7k booster. Of course, the perfect thing that you want to Soul Charge is something like this, the Witch of Frogs and Melissa. Because when she is placed into the drop zone from the Soul, you may counterblast 1 and call it to rearguard. It's a wonderful skill, and I'm very pleased that it exists. Because it doesn't even have to be an open rearguard, which means that when you do shenanigans, you can actually get more than 3 attacks off in a turn. Moving on to the grade 2s, we start with 3 copies of your 10k vanilla, because ride targets, and also good for hitting numbers when required. Next, 3 copies, 4 copies even, of Sawahime, because you want to threaten your opponent with the possibility of soul charging. Because when she hits the Vanguard, you may counterblast 1, and Soul Charge 3. It's only when she hits the Vanguard, so that's the thing. And again, you need things to Soul Charge. Now in English, this is called the Witch of Ravens, Chamomile, so that's irritating, because I know it as the Witch of Birds, so I'm going to call it the Witch of Birds. Same ability as Melissa. When she is placed into the drop zone from the Soul, you may counterblast 1 and call it to rearguard. So wonderful because the 2 of them combined, when you call a pair of them into, as a column from the Soul to the rearguard, it's 16k, which is awesome, because it hits all those pesky 11k Vanguards. Grade 3s. 3 copies of Wisdom Keeper Metis. Now, there's no guarantee that this card will even ever come out in English, so that's a thing. We'll see if it ever does get a release. But Wisdom Keeper Metis, what she does is, when a Genesis rides on top of this unit, you may counterblast 1. If you do, draw a card, Soul Charge 3, and your Vanguard gets plus 10,000 power until the end of turn. She herself has her own ability, which is to Soul Charge 1, and it gets plus 1,000 power when it attacks the Vanguard. Only when it attacks the Vanguard. Now, without knowing that this card is ever going to get an English release, most Genesis players in a month's time will be using Oracle Queen Himiko. Her ability is, when a Genesis rides this unit, choose up to 2 of your Genesis rearguards. Those units get plus 5,000 power, and your Vanguard gets the ability until the end of turn of when this unit attacks, Soul Blast 3, if you do, draw a card. Because I'm using a deck made up of Japanese cards, I went with this one, and I think it's a lot better only because I have this card in my deck. Eternal Goddess Iwanaga Hime! Metis works wonderfully with Iwanaga Hime on account of it essentially halves the cost for her ability that turn. She has the rather high Soul output limit break, which is limit break for Soul Blast 6, retire your opponent's front row rearguards. She also has the activated ability of Soul Blast 3. This unit gets plus 5,000 power until the end of turn. That's a set 10 card. Time for a set 11 card. Last card of the deck is 2 copies of Goddess of Good Luck Fortuna. This is the card that I think most people who have played against my deck kind of fear a bit because of it's not limitless drive checking, but you know, enough drive checking, because her limit break is Soul Blast 3. When each unit's drive check reveals a grade 1 or greater Genesis, you may pay the cost of putting that unit into the drop zone and Soul Blasting 3. If you do, you may repeat that drive check. So let's say you do your drive check and you reveal this and you go, oh, that's not a trigger, I don't like it, I'm going to put it in the drop zone, Soul Blast 3, I'm going to do my first check again. So you can essentially have a whole bunch of drive checks for that one turn until you find a trigger, or in my case, until I run out of soul, and I still haven't found one yet. Because as Mr. Ed will attest to, I think one time I did a turn where I used her ability 4 times, which meant I did a total of 6 drive checks and found precisely nothing. So, in the eyes of the all-knowing card of Sakudetsu, I am incredibly bad at Vanguard. Right, time for a jump cut. Okay, this is about to be a kind of best case scenario, shall we say. We've been very lucky, we've got the right number of soul for what's about to happen, and there's, oh, there we go, let's get him on the screen, and as you can see, they've got 2 copies of each of these 2 cards in their soul, ready for ultimate shenanigans, and I used her skill and everything. So, it's limit break time, so, break ride, and, so, you cannabis 1, you draw a card, let's soul charge 3, let's check a trigger in there for fairness, so, there you go. Now, I have a soul of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 12 soul, which is perfect. Now I'm just going to cool, and cool, and cool. I'm not going to use a skill, even though I could. Soul charge 1 more, I don't need to. I've got 12, that's perfect. So, what you do, you just start swinging with the rear guards first. So there's 18k. And we've got 16k there, that's lovely. Now you've done break ride, so I'm attacking for a lot. It's, this is, let's see, 28,000. That's quite nice. Okay, let's just assume the obvious here. That, you know, if you're at 4 damage, chances are they're going to be at 4 damage too, so they're going to probably want to perfect guard it at this point, or at least give you a 2 to pass. Haha. First check. Oh, that's not a trigger. Wait. Okay, I'm going to use a skill. I put it in the drop zone. I'm going to... Oh, I know. Let's Soul Blast... okay. Soul Blast 3. So, this one, these all go to the drop zone. Except Cannabis 1. Cool. And Cannabis 1. Cool. This is... Again, we're assuming that I've got all the Cannabis 3 for this. And, oh... Cannabis 1. That's all in this, again, best case scenario. I'm just kind of assuming the very best for things here. Second check. Oh. Get rid of it. Soul Blast 3. Drop zone, Cannabis 1. Cool. All of a sudden, I've now got... Well, in this very best case scenario, I've got 5 attacks in the turn, and they're all hitting the right numbers. These 2 columns hit 16,000. Those troublesome 11k vanguards are going to start worrying. Anything I drive check from now is, you know, if I happen to find a trigger, great, I'm going to hit 21, with or without a crit. And I've still got 6 soul, if I feel like it, for trying again. So I can do a total of 6 drive checks. That's where these 2 cards become the most, you know, kind of MVPs in the deck, because you really want them in the soul, and this is why, because then you can get extra attacks that your opponent may or may not be expecting. Chances are they won't, because they'll too busy focusing on having to deal with the Vanguard if you're doing break ride on top of it. But yeah, that's the general idea. You want these cards in the soul so that you can soul blast them later and cause massive headaches for your opponent later. And of course, with repeated drive checks, they can be powered up very quickly too. So, that is the deck. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. I would love to hear your suggestions for any changes that you think might make the deck better than it is. Or just to tell me that I'm terrible at Vanguard because I can never get triggers out of her effect. Haha. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see if we can get this deck into a battle video for you at some point soon. And of course, further set 11 deck profiles are on the way. So until then, we shall see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.